Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Tuesday, July 6, 2021. I'm David Menzies and my co-host, you know, folks, in a world of black and white bozos, she is the Technicolor treat. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
I'm great, and it occurs to me that we need a she-devil with a sword t-shirt in the store.
That might be
right
a trademark term. I think there was a Marvel character called that, or Red Sonja, I think. Or yeah, we'll have our crack legal team look into it. Wouldn't that be great? Instead of doing the really important work, like fighting fines and getting my bottle from the LCBO, we go, can you do a trademark search on she-devil with a sword? Oh boy, that would be great. But I got to tell you, I'm a little perturbed, Sheila, because I found out the hard way on the weekend that you cannot get a refund on a DVD or a Blu-ray. They consider it like the moment you break that cellophane wrap, you've watched the movie and you're just trying to get a refund to be a cheapskate, not pay for it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, also, what year is this? Who's buying DVDs anymore?
I am, and I thought I had bought a DVD about Hong Kong, a documentary on Hong Kong, and I found out when I watched it, it had, there was a scene involving Hong Kong, but that's it. And I was having an argument with Mr. Producer. He said it served you right, but I said based on the title of the DVD, I thought I was buying a DVD about Hong Kong. And I want to know, if you were that clerk at the store, would you have given me my money back based on the title?
What's the title of this movie you're pretending to not know anything about?
Oh, the title is Godzilla versus Kong. Now, you see, I thought it meant Hong Kong, not King Kong. I mean, they don't abbreviate Godzilla's name. They don't call him God or Zilla. So what the heck? What is this? Why? His name is King Kong. It's not just Kong. He's a king. I want my money back. Like I said, there was a scene in Hong Kong, which they pretty much destroy because they're ginormous titans. But that's my case, Sheila Gunn Reid. If you're the judge in a small claims court, do I get my refund?
David, I want a refund for the last minute and a half of my life. Justin and I feel like we've been robbed. We're going to take you to small claims court and sue you for the minute and a half of our lives back that you just stole from us.
How dare you?
These poor store clerks that have to deal with you, you know?
Well,
honestly.
I know, but that, I don't know if we can zoom in, but that is actually a scene of Hong Kong. These buildings are Hong Kong buildings, but it's not Hong Kong, it's King Kong. If they just put his proper title, I wouldn't have made that mistake. And by the way, Sheila,
right.
I actually bet on who was going to win. Do you think I have a gambling problem if I'm betting on which fictional title?
Who did you bet with? Was it with Justin? Was it with Mr. Producer? Did you have a bet with Justin about who's going to win?
No, it was Lady Menzoid. She was a reluctant bettor, but...
that poor woman.
And she also said something along the lines of, I think I just got robbed of 2 hours of my life sitting through this trash.
Just 2 hours, Lady Menzoid. Come on. Come on.
Anyways, enough about my problems with misrepresented DVDs and Blu-rays. Sheila, what is the ostensible policy reason of what we're trying to do for the next 56 minutes?
Yeah, who even knows at this point? It's the Rebel Daily News live stream. Used to just be on Fridays, just hosted by Ezra Levant, but the pandemic struck. And everybody sort of got locked down. We thought, hey, there's more news than ever. CBC's not telling people the news. They actually made a conscious company-wide decision to do less news during the pandemic. We said, we're grounded. People are at home. The news is changing minute by minute, it seems, especially with regulations and closures and openings and case counts and all those things that, pollute the airwaves every day. We thought there needs to be a better way for us to talk about this. So we expanded the Rebel live stream from just Friday to 5 work days. Ezra hosts Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Big accomplishment considering he hosts a daily show. Plus he runs Canada's largest independent media company. David and I host Tuesdays and Thursdays, sometimes a little more, sometimes, in my case, a little less if I'm busy. And it gives us a chance to interact with each other, which I think is great, but also our viewers too. And it used to be a way for us to make some money for the company and pay the bills and keep the lights turned on. And, you know, YouTube had other ideas. YouTube has sort of become a censorship platform. They completely demonetized us after deciding that we couldn't qualify for ad dollars a little while ago. Then they said, no, you don't get super chats now too. Left a $400,000 hole in the company. And also us with the realization that our time really on YouTube is borrowed. So we have, you know, plan B through Zed, and I say Zed because I'm Canadian. And you can find us on other platforms. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hi, we're here for spite. They don't want us here. We're going to be here. And it's a great place for people to find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, might I suggest you take a bit of an off-ramp to a couple other platforms. We are broadcasting on Rumble, good Canadian company. You can find us on Odyssey. And if you're on Odyssey, you can do something there too called a hyper chat. You have to buy Odyssey's library cryptocurrency. Again, I've not found out about cryptocurrency and I must learn about it. Apparently it's the way of the future. But you have to buy their library cryptocurrency and you can throw some of that our way and we'll read your comment on air. Or you can go to Super U. And Super U has something called a Super U Shout where you can talk back and forth, leave a comment. And on Super U, you can also leave us a tip to support the work that we do. And if you leave us a tip, then Mr. Producer will let us know and we'll read your question or comment on air. And I think I have all the bases covered there.
I think you do, Sheila. And, you know, in case anyone is thinking that we're crying over spilt milk about losing all the revenue from YouTube, it should be pointed out, Sheila, that there was no valid reason for demonetizing us. They gave us some kind of cockamamie rules against the community, and we went through those rules with a fine-tooth comb. Things like, you know, advocating suicide, for example, right? Yeah. You know, things like advocating dangerous stunt behavior, none of which we do. It's not our bailiwick. We would never do that. You know, I would almost respect YouTube more if they simply just said, we hate you and your politics and we're pulling away, instead of lying about the reason they do it. But that's how they roll in Silicon Valley, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like a country unto themselves there in Silicon Valley. They're like a country that exists on the internet with their own rules, with their own constitution, with their own allowable and way that you engage other people. It's like its own culture. And that culture has nothing to do with freedom, even though they exploited the First Amendment to become what they are and make all their money. Now, you know, now that they've become so powerful, none of that matters because they can just make their own rules.
Oh, well said, Sheila. Well said. And I guess why don't we get right down to business? I think there was a media outlet, was it CTV Global? Maybe it was CBC. It was about Grace Life Church reopening. Oh, what am I saying? No, of course it was none of those media outlets. It was our very own Sheila Gunn Reid who did a fantastic interview with the pastor. Let's roll the video and you'll get a sampling of what they discussed.
Pastor Coates, first week back in the church since it was returned to you after it was seized by the province for 90 days. Your church spent 3 times as long in jail as you did. What's the feeling like? It was pretty joyous for me. What was it like?
Well, I've got to be honest, coming to church today for the first time in, I believe, 7 months, when we didn't need to be concerned about the fear of enforcement from the governing authorities, was different. And so even leading up to today, I was wrestling in my heart with just a level of excitement that wasn't there. And wondering, what is that? And why am I not more thrilled about this? And I can't ultimately put my finger on that, except to say that we've just gone through an incredibly difficult season. And I think it's going to take some time for us to adjust from that. But today was amazing. Just a wonderful morning of worship. And it just was such a blessing to gather today the way that we did. And so I am grateful to our Lord.
It was, for me, a return to normal. And I don't know what it was like before, but I didn't realize how abnormal some of the things were. For example, to see your deacons and your elders, who I've come to know, worshiping with their families. Because before they used to have to guard the door for the cops and Alberta Health Services and the media, but they were with their families. And I realized how strange this must have been, that now they can return to worship the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think this was a huge dose of normality for in a lot of ways. I mean, even the offering, we haven't taken up an offering since I think prior to the onset of COVID-19. And so, Pastor Jacob Spence, we said we're going to do the offering on Sunday, and the offering really is an expression of worship. I mean, people can still give even without that offering time that we have in our service, but that is an act of worship where we give to the Lord out of what He's entrusted to us. So anyway, Jacob, he hadn't even seen how we do that. So he was just like, how do you guys do that? And so we got to see that today. So yeah, today was a wonderful dose of normality. I mean, we have lived a very normal life, apart from the fact that we've had to anticipate the possibility of legal enforcement, but our gatherings have been really normal for a long time. So whereas a lot of churches are coming back to normality in a way that they haven't experienced at all for the last year or so, we've been doing this the entire time almost. So, but it was wonderful to be here, and for those guys to be able to be with their families again was a rich blessing.
I'm glad that you mentioned Pastor Jacob, because I think he's one of the unsung heroes in all of this. And I think some of that, and maybe that's my fault, it gets glossed over. You ended up in jail for 35 days for refusing to obey the government over God and your obligations as a pastor. Jacob Spence stepped up to that pulpit the very next week, didn't skip a beat, knowing he could full well end up right beside you in jail or next cell. I don't know. You guys could start a band. But I think people have sort of missed his bravery in all of this.
Yeah. I mean, had he and I been in jail together, we could have had some sweet fellowship. But yeah, the courage he showed, in particular that first Sunday, he had no idea what the outcome of that was going to be. And I remember being in prison, and I was thinking about Jacob. I was thinking about Tim, and thankfully Pastor Tim's out now too, praise God. And just praying for these men. And I was praying for them at that time, and really didn't want them to have to suffer my fate. I was hoping that by going to prison, I'd keep them out. That didn't work out in Tim's case. But in Jacob's case, the courage he showed that first Sunday and each Sunday thereafter was amazing. And so, yeah, the resolve, the unsung hero, absolutely amen.
Yeah. Now,
Sheila, that was such a great interview, and I urge our viewers to go and watch the whole enchilada. It's great. And I'll tell you what strikes me, Sheila, right off the bat, is that Pastor Coates, how diplomatic and gracious and polite he is. As you mentioned, he spent 35 days in the cooler, and we're not talking about some townhouse. We're talking about Edmonton's maximum security prison, a very dire place to spend even one night in. And I'm telling you, he's a greater man than I, Sheila, because if you had done that to me on no valid grounds, it's not like he committed a real crime, I think I would just be full of, bile and spite, and I would still be angry how the state took away my freedom for no valid reason.
Well, that's the thing. Like I pointed out in the video, there are so many people in this that sort of are unsung heroes who, for lack of a better term, did their best to conduct themselves in a Christ-like manner. Pastor Jacob Spence. I mean, Pastor Coates gets hauled away to jail. And at the time, nobody knew when he was getting out. He could have been in there for months. Yeah. And Jake Spence said, you know what? I'm on the pulpit. What comes, comes. And, if they take me, there'll be another. And, the deacons who are out there guarding the door every single week, when I was there, and I was there for, I think, for about 8 or 9 weeks. So while Pastor Coates was in jail, a little bit before and a little bit after, for me in that church, that was my experience. But going back this week, you're like, oh yeah, that was really weird, and it should not have happened that way. And you forget because you're living in it all the time. And it's funny because in talking with Pastor Coates, I sort of realized, I'm like, oh yeah, he wasn't here and I was here. And so he doesn't really know who I know and the relationships I formed in those 2+ months that I was here. And so it's sort of strange because you feel like you're sort of catching up and comparing notes a little bit.
And, Sheila, the way I look at this whole story, I call it political judo, because in the current events analysis, yeah, the state jailed Pastor Coates. Yeah, they fenced off his church. So they won in terms of putting an anvil down in terms of services happening there. But in a historical context, people will look back on this, as they are right now, and did Jason Kenney and did Shandro really score a victory, given that this got media attention around the world? This was shameful. So the judo part, it's kind of like Pastor Coates used the weight of the state against them in flipping them over, because he comes out smelling like a rose. And for Premier Kenney, it is just, I hear the Cersei Game of Thrones shame bell still ringing.
Yeah, and it really depends what your motivation is. So if your motivation is to squash the Christian church, well, then you don't know the history of the Christian church, because the Christian church thrives under persecution. The original persecution of the Christians caused them to flee. And when they fled, they spread Christianity across the globe. So, and then with Pastor Coates, his service this past Sunday was the biggest one yet. They had 150 people outside in tents. Wow. The entire church was full. The vestibule was full. Upstairs was full. People were sitting in their cars listening. I mean, they had to start parking cars off the property on the farmer next door's land because it was just so full. So if your plan was to demoralize Christians, didn't work. And if it was Jason Kenney's intention to show people how he handled the pandemic in a smart way, I don't really know what his motivation would be. When you've got Ron DeSantis, the rock star of the lockdown, critical of what happened to religious freedom here in Canada, when you've got Scott Walker weighing in, when you've got Josh Hawley writing letters saying, maybe we should put these people on a watch list alongside Iraq and China and Afghanistan. Those are the other people on the list that he wants us to join. You didn't handle the pandemic the way you think you did. Now, within Alberta's insular media bubble, who are constantly cheering for the lockdown, you might think under the dome in Edmonton, as they say, under the dome of the legislature, you did a good job. But out there in the real world, people are like, what in God's name happened to Jason Kenney, and what is happening in that country?
Wow. Why did you have to mention Ron DeSantis? I look at the face of conservatives in the U.S. That is the image that immediately springs to mind. And then I look at who's the leader of the opposition in Canada. It's Erin O'Toole. Oh, my goodness. Can you tell a difference? Oh, yeah, I can tell a difference. Can you, Sheila?
Did you see maybe Justin can bring them up, some of Erin O'Toole's tweets over the weekend where he's just like taking a picture of himself. I don't know what he's doing. He's not door knocking, but he's standing there with an umbrella talking to people. And that's like his bold, like, look at me, I'm an energizing conservative campaign move. Boy, I can really feel the intensity, Aaron. Like you look at Ron DeSantis, he's fighting with the media. He knows exactly. Yeah, see this one. Rain won't stop. Good grief. Look at that.
Yeah, the rain won't stop him from visiting, but the Ontario lockdown order probably does, right, Sheila?
Yeah. Can we just go back there for a second? Oh, at least he's not wearing a mask. Sometimes he's wearing a mask and I'm like, you're fully vaccinated, I'm pretty sure. Plus, didn't you already have COVID? Like, why are you wearing a mask at this point? Like, how many layers of immunization do you have to get going for you before you take that thing off your face? But this is, can you feel the fire, David? Can you feel it just burning? Gosh. Anyway, we should get to some of these chats. Okay. Justin's whispering in my ear. We've got a Rumble chat from Joyful Art from the Heart. Says she feels sad when people look at me and ask, do you think we'll be back to normal soon? Yeah. You know, and the further we get away from normal, I think a lot of people aren't going to remember it. Like there's a lot of people who are really adjusting to how things are and they really like it. I was at, and I should maybe talk about this because, you know, sometimes a Facebook post and a complaint can change the world. But yeah, I was at Costco the other day, and I would say this is Alberta, and like 25% of the people were still wearing masks. And I think, okay, fine. You want to wear a mask? You're a true believer. That's great. I'm not. And thank goodness that we don't have to wear them anymore. But I thought, wow, like there are just some people who are they're deep in the throes of this madness. And I don't know how they're ever going to get back out. I really don't.
No, they really drunk the Kool-Aid. And I can tell you, you know, and it's funny, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, you're mask-free where you are, Sheila. And yet when Mocha and I went to Ottawa, we were in the Ottawa airport, and Mocha pointed out that the public service announcement saying the de rigueur masks are mandatory in the airport and in the aircraft, added in the line, we recommend double masks. And Mocha said to me, how soon is the recommendation going to be a rule that you got to put 2 of those face diapers on you? Flying was already an atrociously bad experience just by going through the pat-down area and the overpriced, undercooked food you get in airports. But this social distancing, masking rubbish, it has just made it like the least thing I want to do right now is get on an airplane, Sheila. It's a horrible experience.
Those flight attendants look like they're going into brain surgery. Like they are wearing like the booties, smock, hair thing, mask, goggles. Sometimes they wear like the shield, gloves. Like they look like they work in the Ebola ward and they're just flying the friendly skies.
Some friendly skies. I got one of those COVID Karen stewardesses give me a little mild reminder of the policy on Air Canada, which is basically Governor Newsom's policy that, you know, she saw me with my mask off because I was drinking and she says, "Sir, your mask." And I said, "I'm drinking." And then she said, "Yeah, but we like it if you take a sip, put your mask on, and then take the mask off for the next sip." I'm not making this up, Sheila. You know, I was too slow on the draw with my cell phone camera to record this rubbish. And by the way, folks, will you hear our next story from Down Under about precisely the same thing, drinking a beverage that got one man a whole heap of trouble. But I think we have some more chats, don't we, Sheila?
Yes, and David, you should have brought your like nose mask thing on your Air Canada flight and seen if that was kosher.
Yeah. And if you don't know what Sheila's referring to, folks, some Mexican researchers back in April, and we thought it was an April Fool's joke, but we couldn't get any confirmation. They were saying that if you go to a patio now, you got to have your mouth open for eating and drinking, but there's absolutely no excuse for leaving your nostrils open. So they recommended a nose mask. And I said, well, you know, one of the best-selling novelty items of all time, the Groucho Marx nose and fake glasses. Oh, there's funny. Mr. Producer, always Johnny on the spot. So I went to a patio.
God, I love this so much.
Boy, did I get some looks that day. And so this is how the authorities, some of them, want you to eat. Look at that woman looking out her food truck. She thinks there's a maniac at the picnic table.
The eyebrows are the best. Like, that's like, what is that, carpet? Fake fur?
So there you go. And by the way, that's a fallacy too, Sheila. Don't you, especially if you go to fine dining, don't you like to smell the food, and the bouquet of the wine? But no, here's what some Mexican researchers wanted. This guy was a gem. He runs one of the food trucks there down at Yonge Dundas, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He just wants to serve people food, right? But yeah.
I just have a hard time believing that you smell the bouquet of the wine before you do any of that. I've had a few drinks with you, David, and I don't know if there's any wine swirling happening at all. Although you do like your whiskey, which is one of the most asked questions we get out on the street is, did David get his bottle of whiskey? And
to answer that question, no. And a young lawyer at our firm that is doing all the fines cases, I sent him the chronology on the weekend. And if you can imagine, folks, we are going to send the LCBO a demand letter to give me my bottle that I paid for, but they won't give me, for reasons that still remain unexplained, other than they're a government-run monopoly. And as much as I despise monopolies, the worst monopolies are the ones run by the bureaucracy. So there will be an update when they get the demand letter, because, Sheila, is this really going to be headed to small claims court?
God, I hope so. I hope so. I'm going to cover it like I'm Nancy Grace. I am. I can't wait. Now, Justin, I know you really want us to proceed with these chats, but I did send you a picture that I took when I was down at my local farm supply store, the Peavey Mart, because I'm a devoted Peavey Mart. I'm a devoted Peavey Mart customer. And for those of you outside of the West, I think although you might be getting the Peavey Marts in the East now, so congratulations. You're going to love them. It's like your one-stop store. It's like home hardware, but more farm supply involved. You can get your Wranglers there, your beekeeping supplies, your canning supplies, your plants, your chicken feed, your cattle waterer. Like, it's got everything. It's everything plus nuts and bolts and hardware and casters and all those things. Like, if I need it, Peavey Mart has it. And if Peavey Mart doesn't have it, I'm pretty sure I don't need it. So anyway, strolling into my Peavey Mart, it's, like July 2nd or something, and I'm strutting into Peavey Mart because that's my happy place, right? And I see this horrible sign on the door at the Sherwood Park Peavey Mart, and I am just beside myself. I didn't go in. I actually drove to another town. I drove back to Fort Saskatchewan to go to the UFA, to the United Farmers. So anyways, they said that they decided, Peavey Industries, so that's as a company, has decided that mandatory mask regulations for our stores, so not just this store, will apply until August 2nd for the safety of our customers and our staff, blah, 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 blah. So I snapped this picture and I put it on my Facebook and I put it on Twitter. And all I said was, I didn't say anything mean. I just said, that's fine. I'll go to the UFA. Because they're not the only gig in town. I just really like them. So anyways, I get a message from Peavey Mart after, I guess Peavey Mart was put on blast. I get a message from Peavey Mart Corporate, who tracked me down on Twitter. That's another thing I should add. I was like, holy moly, I think Peavey Mart's getting a lot of blowback, and I felt like it was a little much. And I like Peavey Mart. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take a break from Peavey Mart. I'll be back on August 2nd. They were getting so much blowback that even though I deleted the tweet and my Facebook post, they tracked me down on Twitter. Peavey Mart Corporate sent me a message that said, that's not a decision that we made as a company. That is, my words, I'll just summarize. That's the Sherwood Park store going rogue. The Peavey Mart Industries did not make this decision.
Wow.
And this is a very misleading sign, and we're investigating how that sign came to be. Now, I drove past Peavey Mart yesterday, longingly, lovingly. However, I didn't need to go in and spend any money because every time I drive past a Peavey Mart, $200 just jumps out of my wallet. And that sign had come down. So anyway, problem solved. People in Sherwood Park and surrounding areas, go back to your beloved Peavey Mart.
Sheila, you have to go back to that particular Peavey Mart because I want to know who is responsible for that sign going up and on what basis. I have no doubt, especially since you shop there for farm equipment, that Peavey Marts are fantastic places for that. But what made this manager, assuming it's the manager, I don't know if they're franchisees, if it was the franchisee that made this decision, what makes them think they're infectious disease experts to go against, the grain in terms of even Alberta Health Services, for goodness sake?
Yep.
And and if I'm the CEO of Peavey Industries, I'm having a volcanic eruption out of my head.
Yeah.
How dare not only a franchisee or an owner or a manager goes rogue, but it puts the opening line is Peavey Industries, when Peavey Industries had nothing to do with this. I think that's an incredible story. And it reminds me, maybe Mr. Producer can find this for a later time, when we went to Dufferin Street, we were tipped off. And if I hadn't seen the video, I wouldn't have believed that it was a home hardware outlet. Do you remember this one, Sheila? Where a guy who had a mask exemption, and this guy sought out the little home hardware because he wanted to give money to the little guy, even though there's a Home Depot less than 2 kilometers away. And instead of being rewarded for that, he had the merchandise snapped out of his hands. He was frog marched out the door by a Karen. And then when he pointed out, look, the City of Toronto notice in your own door, it says there are exemptions for those who have medical reasons not to wear a mask. An employee came out with a piece of duct tape and covered over, which you're not allowed to do, as I found out from the city. You can't alter a sign that way. But I mean, holy red green, yet another use for duct tape, to make people wear their masks. So that's what your little anecdote reminded me when it comes to going rogue and playing fast and loose with the masking rules.
Yeah, this is the message I got directly from Peavey Mart. We're looking to how and why that sign was posted. We want to make it clear that we follow any regulations in each area that we operate. So unless a municipality specifically requires us, our stores in Alberta do not require customer mask use and wearing. The sign posted was quite misleading and not our position. And they were very grateful that I took the post down because I guess they were getting a lot of heat. They said, we appreciate you taking the post down on your end and we want to be as clear as we can be. We've always done our best and what was right. We will be speaking with the store and ensuring that it's understood and re-communicating if necessary. Oh, I think it's necessary. We are 100% not forcing our customers to wear masks, and we follow all local restrictions, and customers in Alberta do not require masks when shopping with us. The sign posted from that location has been removed, and we're looking into why it was posted in the first place. And it was removed because I drove past yesterday to make sure it was. Well,
Sheila, good for Peavey Industries for doing the right thing. And let's make no mistake, Peavey Industries is a victim here. This was a rogue person. And you, like I said, you have to go back to that store and find out who the dimwit was that put that sign up in the first place and made it a misleading sign that, oh, well, it's not us, it's Peavey Industries, the parent company of Peavey Mart, when that was a lie. So there's so many things wrong with that sign, and you have to follow up, Sheila, I should say. Well, I mean, I can't order you around. You're the chief journalist here. But if I had your title, I'm ordering you to follow up.
I also was giving some thought to the fact that this manager obviously victimized his poor staff, because his poor staff obviously are thinking they need to make sure that the customers are wearing masks when they walk in the door. And so a lot of people in Alberta are like, the hell, I'm wearing a mask. And so they're probably being prickly with the girls and the guys who are running the tills and helping everybody out because their manager is making them enforce mask laws that aren't the case. So the staff got victimized by all of this too.
Oh, what a jabroni. Whoever was responsible for that sign. It's beyond jabroni. It's super King Kong Godzilla jabroni, okay? That's what.
The moral of the story, though, is that this Western-based company that hopefully is moving east, and you guys will enjoy the wonders of Peavey Mart, they did the right thing. They rectified the problem with me directly. They found me, even though I deleted the post. and they're straightening out the stores. So, I mean, in a time when corporations are woke and they are, just enforcing laws just because they can do things inside their stores, this is a company that is respecting the laws in the places that they work. And I think that's great.
And you know what, Sheila, when they do move east, I'm going to support this company for them doing the right thing. You said I can buy a beehive there, right? Or something.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
then.
You can order bees there. You can order chicks there. Like, you can get whatever you need. It's at the Peavey Mart. I promise. Brake cleaner, like everything.
Wow. Be thanking you.
Oh, my God.
Do we have some more chats? Hey, Sheila, cat got your tongue.
Oh, my God. The bee emoji. Oh, I can't wait till they take that away from you. Okay, so we've got a hyper chat from History Club World. It was just announced that Mary Simon will be the next Governor General. What do you think of her? And do you believe that there should be a Governor General? Did you get my tip yesterday? Yes, we did. Follow History Club World on Instagram. So Mary Simon I think she's Inuit. Yep. And if she's not, I'm going to get letters. But I think she's Inuit.
No, I think you're right.
So she's the first Indigenous Governor General, but also she doesn't speak French, which I think is a step in the right direction, because I think the French language laws, and they're not really laws, but they're like, if you want to move up in the bureaucracy, if you want to be a Supreme Court justice, if you want to be in charge of if you want to be a deputy minister, if you want to have any sort of role of influence in the federal government, you have to be completely fluent in French, which by and large completely cuts Westerners out of the equation. It protects the fact that Canada is run by Central and Easterners. And so for me, I think this is a step in the right direction, because look, if it's good enough for Mary Simon, it's good enough for any other Albertan who wants to be a Supreme Court justice who is not completely fluent in French.
Well, but Sheila, she did issue a statement that she's going to learn French on the job.
Dang it!
Good luck with that. I've tried to learn French twice. I wish I could speak French. I really do.
I don't.
And the only French word I know, folks, is no cadeau, which when I check my lottery tickets means it's yet again another losing ticket.
I want to learn a language that I can use when I am enjoying some time off work, like Spanish. So if I want to go to Mexico, I would take time off work to go to Mexico. But if I did, I would like to use a language that would be valuable there. Or learn a base language like Dutch or German, because those are, I guess, from what I understand, make it easier to learn other languages. So, I don't know.
Well, our Quebec rebel Alexa is not going to like to hear this, Sheila. And there are,
I'm
countries,
resistant to it.
You can go to countries around the world where they still speak French other than France, like Haiti. And I'm sure there's some more. So there you go.
Yeah, there's some failed states in Africa, I think, where they still speak French. No, I just don't have anything against French language or even French people. I just don't I'm resistant to the coercion that Westerners face to learn French to advance their careers. I guess the second question of that hyper chat was, do you believe there should be a Governor General? Yeah, I do. In the same way that I'm not opposed to the monarchy. I appreciate the tradition. As a conservative, I think it is incumbent on us to conserve our values, our traditions, our heritage. And whether people like it or not, the monarchy and being a constitutional monarchy, that is part of our Canadian culture. And it's one of those things that, from coast to coast to coast, it's our system of government. And
Sheila, let's not forget, was it 2006, around about then, when there was an attempted coup against the Harper minority government by, I always love this descriptor, the socialist, the separatist, and the citizen of France. And if not for Michael Jean allowing Parliament to be prorogued, that would have been our government, So, and I think that was the most prominent act I've ever seen in my lifetime of a Governor General doing, because she could have decided the other way. And she chose the right way, regardless of your politics, folks. That should never have been allowed.
And think if that were allowed, if she didn't do the right thing in the interest of democracy, because it wasn't a political thing that she did. She, was reflecting, like this is what the voters wanted, and you three weirdos are coming along to usurp it. We would have been denied 10 years of good governance at the hands of Stephen Harper.
Could you imagine how radically different things would be? Well, it would be kind of like now, I guess.
A lot sooner.
A lot sooner.
So it would have been like now, but in 2008.
Yeah. Golly.
So Super U from Hollywog, the movie Godzilla versus Kong sucked. I'd say more, but I'd spoil it. Is that your wife? Is that your poor wife thing?
No, and one other footnote on Godzilla versus Kong. It's a remake of the 1962 film, which was King Kong versus Godzilla. How does Godzilla in 2021 get top billing? And not only that, King Kong gets half his name left off. And by the way, Godzilla and King Kong are both 8 letters. Okay, King Kong is 9 with the space, if you want to get technical. So why was it abbreviated in the first place?
Justin, cut his mic. Justin.
How dare you? Anyways, enough of the King Kong Godzilla thing, and yeah, it was exactly how you expected it to go. If you're ever in a movie like that and you want to survive, just hang around Millie Bobby Brown, because they're never going to kill her, even though there's giant monsters trampling all over the city. So just hang with Millie Bobby Brown, you'll be safe.
We've got a hyper chat from History Club World. Yesterday it was announced that the federal government is going to make a new train route between Montreal and Toronto. This will cost at least 20% of our national GDP, according to my math. Follow History Club World on Instagram. Isn't there already a train route there?
I'm wondering if the viewer means one of these high-speed,
a monorail.
or monorail. But I'll tell you, here's the thing, Sheila. This has been proposed going back to the 80s.
They do this. Sorry, David, to interrupt. They do this in Alberta all the time. Yeah. We're going to build a monorail from Edmonton to Calgary, and we're Albertans, and we're like, no, we're just going to drive our pickup trucks and throw cigarettes out the window. That's what we do.
And same here.
You can't force us on a train.
But they have talked about this forever, a Quebec City to Windsor bullet train. Now I guess they've shortened it for critical mass reasons, Montreal to Toronto. It's not going to work. The train's going to work, but it's going to be empty cars. It's going to be a multi-billion-dollar white elephant, because the population base, unlike Europe, is not there. And people are going to continue to drive in their vehicles. But that's what this is all about, Sheila. They're playing the green card again. Get out of your cars and go into the electrically powered, bullet train to save the environment. Not that you'd ever catch Justin Trudeau riding the train, right? So that's what it's all about, not flying, not driving. And you know what? The vast majority of Canadians in that route are going to fly and drive. And I can only imagine how expensive that train ticket is going to be to pay off the incredible capital costs that will go into building this thing. And I'll predict it right now, this is a white elephant in the making.
Well, yeah, it's sort of the same as these short hop airline routes for me. So I know sometimes, I have to go to Calgary semi frequently. And, sometimes Ezra will say, well, why don't you fly? Well, because I'm at least an hour from the airport. Then I need an hour to get through the airport. And then I need an hour in the air. And then I've got to rent a car on the other side. I'm like, or I could just drive 4 hours, have my own car on the other side, and everything's fine. It just, Canada doesn't have, as you say, that population density around the places you need to get to and from for some of these things to make sense at all.
And by the time this is built, what do you want to bet that for this train, like the plane, Sheila, they still have some stupid masking protocol on?
Oh, for sure.
So you know what? I like being in my own little environment, unmasked, listening to the tunes I want to listen to, and not having to deal with all of this rubbish of being crammed into a cylinder wearing a mask. No, thank you.
Yeah, and being hungry the whole time and thirsty the whole time because of COVID, they can't give you any snacks or food. And I'm just like, no, I've got my coffee, got my beef jerky, and you know, like I'm happy. I'm in the zone. I'm listening to, you know, an ebook or whatever on my way down. Yeah, no.
So because this is a super bad idea, Sheila, what are the odds they're going to go ahead with it?
100%. And SNC Lavalin is going to be involved on the engineering side and Bombardier on the actual train side. Actually, I would be shocked to find out that Bombardier isn't involved in this in some form.
And you know what the two train stations in Montreal and Toronto should be? In Montreal, it should be Olympic Stadium and the Sky Dome in Toronto. Two other stadia white elephants. They can serve as the, I mean, then you have the complete enchilada.
Tied up in a nice bow, a nice Bombardier bow.
Bombardier bow.
Okay.
What does that look like, a noose?
It's made of money. It's green. It's made of money. We've got a Rumble chat from Frog Soup. YouTube censorship, ironically, is only making the Rebel more powerful, more reach, more viewership. Yeah, we're just like, I've said it before, we're like Johnny Appleseed. We're just sprinkling content on all these other platforms and finding new eyeballs. And, you know, it's like one of those things, right? People tell me not to do something. I'm kind of more inclined to do it. Tell me not to look at something. Don't look over there. It's like when they tell you not to look at the solar eclipse and I'm like, maybe I could just have a little peek. I don't need those glasses. I'll just have a little peek. And I feel like that might be some of what's happening with us here on Rebel News.
Folks, whatever you do, don't peek at a solar eclipse.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I've never done it. Advocating dangerous behavior. Go in your basement and bake a cherry cheesecake.
I've never done it, but I'm always like, should I do it? Should I do it? They're telling me not to. I don't. My eyes are bad enough as it is, and I'm using Braille to see what's on my monitor here. Okay. So we've got a hyper chat from Rebecca Henderson. Medscape did an article that said that type 2 diabetes in children doubled during the lockdowns in the U.S., probably similar to Canada. Type 2 diabetes is the one that's more lifestyle related. So I guess when you have kids engaging in a sedentary lifestyle, you've canceled all their sports and you've told them to just Netflix, chill, and cheesecake. Yeah, I see that. That makes perfect sense to me. It goes on to say people died in a fire in a COVID jail in Taiwan because they were scared to break the rules and leave the COVID jail. The term saving lives has lost all its meaning.
Wow, I didn't hear that.
There were people who were in the COVID jail, like the hotel, like one of Trudeau's COVID jails. Fire breaks out. They don't leave because they're worried if they leave, they're going to break the rules and get a ticket.
Oh, unbelievable. And that's for their safety.
For their saving lives. That person's right. Like, this is all just in the interest of public health. Meanwhile, we're giving healthy kids type 2 diabetes because that's lifestyle related. We've got a hyper chat from Morphitus. Keep up your amazing work exposing the global socialist agenda 2031. The World Trade Forum ran a cyber pandemic test run on paper in Davos. Time to talk about it. We have in the past. It's come up in the super chats before. We've got a Rumble chat from Chris's Kingdom. What this pastor went through and the other pastors should never ever be happening in Canada. Our government still needs to be held accountable. Unfortunately, it sounds like the only way that they're going to be held to account is at the ballot box. I hope that Tyler Shandro gets he faces the nomination challenge. But is
that possible?
I don't know. I think because he's one of Jason Kenney's inner circle, I wonder if they won't even sign the papers of the other people who want to run against him in the nomination.
Yeah, he's one of those Sky Palace MLAs, right?
Yeah, he's up there in Sky Palace while the people protesting literally underneath Sky Palace, they get tickets. Yeah. Like literally underneath, like the protest every Saturday is right under Sky Palace.
What an image. And I can just see Shandro saying to Premier Kenney, look, from this height, they look like little ants, the people, don't they?
Yeah. By the way, I was thinking about this over the weekend. I really want to know what it costs to prosecute these pastors and drag them through everything. Because I know in at least 3 cases, they've brought in outside lawyers. Because I don't know, I guess the government ones aren't good enough, or they need extra lifting power, or they're just prosecuting so many people. But they've brought in outside hired guns, like high profile lawyers, to deal with this. And one of them, actually, if I recall his Twitter bio correctly, says like proud atheist or something. And I'm like, well, that's a little
really
on the nose. But yeah, I'm curious about what the contracts were for these outside lawyers to come in and persecute, I guess would be the right word, Christian pastors.
Well, let's find out.
I'm gonna, I will. We've got a hyper chat from Rebecca Henderson. And it says, it doesn't make sense if PH is calling for fourth wave. Oh, public health is calling for the fourth wave, but is closing field hospitals in Hamilton because they didn't have a single patient. Yeah, no kidding. If public health is afraid of a fourth wave, why are they closing and reducing healthcare capacity? There's a healthcare emergency. Why is healthcare being cut? Public health is full of crap. And that's the thing. I don't even think healthcare is being cut. Healthcare in Canada, because it's publicly funded, is always rationed. That's why you wait 2 years for knee surgery. So that's a chronic state of affairs in Canada. The pandemic is nothing new. And it's one of those things that could be easily alleviated if we allowed some competition in our healthcare system. We wouldn't have these limited resources to deal with, public health crises. We wouldn't have to cancel surgeries. We could just sort of offset those to a place that had other capacity. But because we're a solely publicly funded healthcare system and we don't allow competition, well, the pandemic showed us that chickens have come home to roost.
You're absolutely right, Sheila. I've done some reading up on healthcare systems around the world, and as far as I can tell, Germany and France probably have the best system because it's publicly funded, or if you want to, if you have a little extra scratch in the bank, you can go to a private healthcare system, and it's win-win. You avoid the line, and because you have taken yourself out of the line in the public system, everyone moves up a notch. And the detractors say, well, yeah, but the public healthcare system turns into a ghetto hospital. No, that's false. It does not. They're both excellent in those countries. But the sad thing is, Sheila, in this country, even proposing something like that is the political third rail. You will get electrocuted. You are done like dinner because all the special interest groups, all the unions, all the leftists are going to say, see, they're taking away your publicly funded health care. Tommy Douglas is rolling in his grave right now. You cannot even propose it as a discussion item. How sad.
Well, and the Fraser Institute has done some really great analysis between like Alberta and Saskatchewan. And Saskatchewan has private MRI clinics. And their wait times are like exponentially shorter than ours. And it doesn't cost the system anymore. Actually, it costs the system substantially less. Like I forget what it is per person, but I think it's close to $800 per year per person that Saskatchewan pays, like less than Alberta. And we pay way more than BC, and their wait times are better. So throwing money at the problem, at the publicly funded system, it's not what works. Innovation and doing things differently is what works.
And you know what, Sheila? Unofficially, we do have, if you will, black market two-tier health system. Do you think, folks, that if you're a member of the Toronto Raptors or the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Toronto Blue Jays, do you think when you get injured, you get into a line and wait 7 months? No, there's some cockamamie formula that somehow they get to the top of the line. So give me a break. I'm done with this hypocrisy when it comes to healthcare.
Well, if you've ever been on a holiday to a tropical place, either in Mexico, the United States, for example, Hawaii, they give concierge treatment to Canadians who can afford it. So you can come there, you can book your knee surgery and go recover poolside at a hotel, and they send in nurses to take care of you. So there's already a two-tiered system. But wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to spend our life savings to get the knee surgery that we need so that we can play on the floor with our grandkids? We don't have that here. We have to seek it out in another country. And that's not fair.
No, it isn't. But it'll never be addressed in our lifetime, Sheila. Forget it.
No. We've got a hyper chat from History Club World. I envision a documentary about Coates. You start off by slowly zooming in on the church, then you show some footage talking about the pandemic in the earliest days, then you go through the restrictions on churches right up to December. Then you start showing footage on them preaching and cops. And I think we ran out of room there. But I know actually that my friend Jimmy, he's the videographer at the church there. He's working on a little project. And as soon as he has some things formalized, I would like to, help him publicize that, because I'm sure that he will probably need some money to do it. So I'd love to be able to connect him with the right people so that he can tell the story, because he actually is a pretty highly trained videographer. The church is really lucky to have him, but he's, called by God to be a member of his church and use his skills there. So I know that he's working on something, and when we use drone footage, it's Jimmy's drone at Grace Life. So he's great.
Fantastic.
Hyper chat from Barry Dutton. Hi guys, I tagged most of the Rebel team last night in a very detailed tweet thread about how I was refused service, surrounded, harassed by Shoppers Drug Mart. Can you guys please look? Class action to help the many. It's difficult with these stores because ultimately they do have the right to refuse you service in some instances, and it depends on the jurisdiction. So, but if you're going to tag me in a tweet, might I suggest you send us an email to tips@rebelnews.com, because as you know, I probably get 1,000 tweets a day. I can't see them all. But tips@rebelnews.com, and we'll have a look at that.
And it really depends on the store too, the culture in the store or the corporation, Sheila. I know Shoppers is very harsh on this issue, and yet I got to tell you, the other day, a couple of grocery stores that I had gone to, Metro and Food Basics, I think they might be owned by the same corporation. I'm not sure about that. But over their PA system, I was stunned. Please respect those who have mask exemptions. When have you ever heard that, Sheila?
That's great.
Yeah. So that's why I'm plugging them.
Over the weekend, I was at the mall, which is like my least favorite place to be. I would rather be at Peavey Mart, but I was a little mad at them at the time. So anyways, I'm looking for a dress because I have this thing. And so I'm in the mall. You don't have to wear a mask in the mall. It's Edmonton Mall, right? Like there's no mask mandate. But to go into, it was H&M. They said, you have to wear a mask in the store. This is our rules. And I'm like, I just walked through the whole damn mall with no mask. My cooties are all through Kingsway Garden Mall. But once I get into your store, then that's different. I have to put a mask on. So I was like, you know what? I don't need anything here anyway. So you know what? That's their business. Have them. That's what you want to do. Whatever. I'll be somewhere else. It's fine.
And you know what, Sheila? That's the way to play it, I think, for our viewers. Vote with your wallets. Go to the stores that show leniency as they're meant to do, and boycott those stores that have COVID Karens behind the counter yelling at you to put your mask on. Vote with your wallet. That'll make a difference if we do it en masse.
Yeah, and let's not forget, again, like what was happening at the Peavey Mart, the staff are being victimized by this too. They're getting put on blast by customers who are saying, no, there's no mask mandate in Edmonton. What are you doing? They're taking a lot of abuse because their management has made these weirdo decisions. Okay, let's keep going. We got a hyper chat. It's History Club World. Do you think anything will happen because of Holly? Do you think Canada's on the road to failure? What is your favorite historical topic? Follow History Club World on Instagram. I think that thanks to Josh Hawley, I think if there is a fourth wave, and I suppose that remains to be seen next flu season, I think the heavy-handedness will be a little less on churches. I think now that they have that international spotlight shining on Canada, and these high-profile conservative politicians in the United States that I think Jason Kenney kind of liked when they liked him before, now they're critical of him. I think he's pretty embarrassed about that, and if he's not, he should be. I think that might leave us with a light touch next time around.
And for my favorite historical topic, Sheila, it has to be Canada's role in world wars, in conflicts abroad, where we always punched above our weight. And I don't even know if they teach that. I remember 2 years ago, it was the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and I did Streeters, Young Dundas Square. I think maybe 2 people said, yeah, it's the 75th anniversary of D-Day. Other people had no idea what June 6th was all about, which suggests to me that these kind of lessons are not being taught in history anymore. Goodness knows what they are being taught.
I agree with you. It's one of those things that it's so inherent to our culture.
Yeah.
But the people who want to change our culture, to want us to believe that we're this horrible place full of racists and human rights abusers, they don't want us to talk about those things, because those are the sacrifices of Canadians in defense of human rights and freedom around the world. We left Canadian soil. Canadian men and women left Canadian soil to defend human liberty and human value in other places before those problems came here. And it's funny, if you go to any small town cemetery and you wander around, you'll notice the World War I cemetery, part of the cemetery, there's always that little spot over by the rundown cenotaph, the ages of the young men who went, like 16, 17, lying about their age to go. And in our modern day and age, we're infantilizing people who are in their 30s, that they need cry rooms because somebody disagreed with them. And we had people half their age lying about their age so that they could go defend human dignity somewhere else.
So well said, Sheila. Can you imagine lying about your age to put your life literally on the line in defense of your country? And today we have maybe a generation or two that you have to worry about trigger warnings. You have to worry, they curl into the fetal position if you misgender them, for example. What happened in just like 80 years? Jeez.
Well, and like, think about the context of it too. So these are young men who have literally never been off the farm before. They've never been, in my instance, many of them probably had never even been to Edmonton, because the trip to Edmonton on a wagon trail, that's what it would have been in, the First World War, would have been just too harsh. She just didn't do it. So they've never been off the farm outside of Ardrossan or Fort Saskatchewan or whatever. And they are signing up to go across the ocean to fight a foreign enemy. That says something about the kind of people that made up this country then.
Yeah, 100%.
Super U from Alberta Separatist says Jason Kenney is a Justin Trudeau wannabe. I don't know if we're there yet, but it depends on the day how I feel about that. We've got a Super U chat from Life. I'll never travel again. I hate it all. There's a lot of people who feel that way, but you know what? There's so much in this vast country for you to see that maybe you don't need to internationally travel. Go to Peggy's Cove, go to the north. There's so much to see within our own country. Maybe this whole thing will wake people up to seeing what we have just right in front of us.
Yeah, and there's always these great roadside attractions like a giant nickel or a giant moose or a giant canoe or something like that.
World's largest pierogi, world's largest kubasa. We got it all here. World's largest mushroom, and I'm just listing things within like 45 minutes of me. So yeah, there's no need to go anywhere.
World's first UFO landing pad in St. Paul, Alberta, where I started my journalism career. What do you think about that? It even got a sentence in Time magazine back in 1967. It was, of course, a centennial project funded by your tax dollars.
You know what? Northeastern Alberta, there's a lot of weird things for you to see. And you can head
that's
south.
Where I ended up.
If you like Star Trek, head down to Vulcan.
Yep.
Hometown of Kean Bexty, I think the tourism information center there looks like the Starship Enterprise. Like, there's a lot of fun things to see in Alberta.
Yeah. So put your phasers on fun. See what I did there, Sheila?
Oh, gosh. I noticed in a video that I watched of yours earlier, just for editorial and to make sure there weren't any dick jokes that snuck in, you made the same joke about the dog heat wave thing that you made the other day. And I'm like, that fell flat when you said it to me on air. Why would he use that?
Because now it's a running joke. It's so bad and everybody knows the punchline. You laugh at the audacity of me stating it again. That's what I was meaning to do.
Is that what I was supposed to do? I don't know. Okay, anyways, we're way past time and Justin probably has other things to do. A hyperchat from Rebecca Henderson. If Rebel sold David's nose mask, I would get them for all of my panicked friends. My friend is fully vaxxed, in her 20s, perfectly healthy, and is still scared to go out in public. I see so many of those.
Well, Rebecca,
I think she needs a nose mask.
You can go to any novelty or costume store, and this is one of the best-selling novelty items of all time, the fake Groucho Marx nose. And so it's already mass-produced. It's been sold for decades. It's there. And just maybe put it in some kind of packaging that suggests that this is a medical item.
We've got a hyper chat from History Club World. Says, in Alberta, we were smart and let the private sector handle alcohol. Yeah, because you shouldn't steal jobs and entrepreneurial opportunities from Albertans and just suck it up into the government. Why does the rest of Canada, I guess this is a question for David, why does the rest of Canada think government should be in charge of providing drinks? And then he also says, Peavey Mart is usually a nice place and UFA was a political party in Alberta once. Yes, it was. However, now what was a socialist collective has now fully embraced capitalism. And so, you know what? I'm a believer in redemption, so I'll shop at UFA also. But anyways, David, about the Ontario LCBO terribleness.
And once upon a time, Alberta alcohol sales, it was a government. But you want the government, is it to warehouse and retail alcohol? Is it to be running casinos? Is it to be selling lottery tickets? No, the role of government is to tax it and regulate it. That's it. And you leave the actual sales to the private sector. And the most despicable thing of all, Sheila, in all the other provinces, whether it's lottery or alcohol, is the fact that government has to be in the monopoly business for these commodities because of social responsibility. Those are the two words they use. Because if, God forbid, we allowed the private sector to sell alcohol, you'd have 12-year-olds in the parking lot getting smashed on Colt 45. It's a fallacy. Yep. That's not the situation in Alberta where there is privatized liquor stores. And it's not the situation in Ontario when there's more than 200 so-called agency stores. Sheila, this is where the LCBO is in a market not big enough to support a standalone LCBO. So you go to the convenience store and they sell the beer, the wine, the spirits. So why is it like in Little Beaton, Ontario, an Ontarian is responsible enough to get alcohol there, but if he lives in Windsor or Toronto or Hamilton or Ottawa, no, you're way too irresponsible. It's so much crap. The idea that they dress this up as, the basis for the monopoly is social responsibility. Why don't they just say, we're greedy, we like our bloated bureaucracy with so many people getting six-figure salaries, which grows every year, and it's a racket. That's what it is. In Prohibition, it was the gangsters running the booze business. Now it's the elected gangsters.
Yeah, and I think the social responsibility argument falls completely flat when you say, okay, well, this small business owner will lose everything he has if he doesn't follow the rules. But these government bureaucrats, pencil pushers, they're not even going to get a slap on the wrist. No. They're not going to get in trouble. What's the government going to do? Fine itself? Take its own license away? These small business owners, if they are not sticklers, they lose everything. The government can't say the same.
Yeah, 100%. In Ontario, if you're caught, I think it's 3 strikes and you're out for tobacco sales, right? It's a gradual big penalties. And if you do it a third time selling tobacco to a minor, and the government actually does sting operations, on these variety stores that are barely getting by, you're out of business. You are out of business. If the LCBO, and we've caught them on camera selling to minors, What do they do? Do they have a suspension? Is there any terminations? No, they shrug and they go, we'll try better next time. What a horrible double standard. You know, it has to be privatized. I hope it will be, but every stripe of government that gets in, it's no. Only Alberta had the bravery, and I guess would that have been under Ralph Klein, I guess, Sheila? Yeah. Well, there you go. Where are the Ralph Kleins?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because in Alberta, there are like liquor stores and beer stores. There's like the independent ones, they're almost always immigrant run. And so when you think about it, in Ontario, they're stealing the entrepreneurial dreams from all these immigrants who come to Canada and think, I'm going to open a little store. I've never seen a liquor store go broke, so it makes perfect sense to like open up a liquor store. People, like if it's convenient, it's close, and your prices are reasonable, you're going to be successful. And in Ontario, the government is just like snuffing all those dreams out.
And Sheila, that's a very important point. Just in case anyone buys into the other fallacy, well, it's a cash cow. No, it's not. In a privatized system, the government is still getting the tax revenue from all these privatized liquor sales. So it's not a cash cow. And in fact, in Ontario, you have LCBOs spending millions, Sheila, on their stores that you would never see in the private sector. So it's the opposite of a cash cow. I once, analyzed, I think it was the 2003 LCBO annual report. And when you removed the taxation part of the revenue, and they claim taxation as revenue, if you can imagine, and it's not. That year, I think they lost something like $25 million. Sheila, can you imagine? You remove the tax component and you actually lost $25 million in Canada's biggest province running a liquor monopoly? This is insane.
I can believe that because when they legalized cannabis, and some of it, like we have privatized cannabis stores here, whatever, it's fine, whatever, who cares? But the sales that were being made through the AGLC, so Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis, I think the AGLC lost, $8 million at one point. And I'm like, yeah, of course, the government can't smell, like the government can't even sell dope. Like that's how bad it is, but whatever. Let's get through this because we're like 13 minutes past the hour.
What do you think they call it dope, Sheila?
Leave it to the government to lose money selling marijuana. Was Celtic Mutt says, Sheila, that shirt, and you've worn it on air before. Yes, I do. I know what you're going to say. And you were wondering what its meaning. I can tell you that it's actually Blackbeard's pirate flag. Yes, it is. I did a series of pirate shirts and did some research and found that that listed as Blackbeard's. Yes, it is. The reason I bought it, though, is not because it's a pirate flag. It's because, first of all, the design's kind of cool, but it's a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt. And they like guns and coffee, and I like guns and coffee. So that's why I bought it.
When you're going to wear a Menzoid shirt?
Oh, gosh, I keep forgetting.
Store, by the way, folks, and I'm still got a $100 bill for the first person I see in public wearing a Menzoid shirt.
And they can use the coupon code Menzies10 to get 10% off the shirt that is going to win them $100. So think about that. Think about that. And that's at rebelnewsstore.com in case you're curious. Yep. We've got a Super U tip from John Yoga Retnam. He tipped us $2. Well, thank you. We've got a Rumble chat from Ryan Rossi. Love David, but I do not want any honey that he makes.
Oh, jeez. There's a punchline just dangling there, but I dare not say it.
My neighbors have bees, and they are in my hayfield. Like they come over to my hayfield, and then they take all their my hayfield stuff back to their hive. But the neighbor's kind enough to drop some honey off all the time because that's my hay. Anyway, we got a Super U from Annalisa. Annalisa, this is for David. She tipped us $20.
Wow. How generous.
And then she said, oh, she's the greatest. No accounting for her taste in men, but she's great. She says, darn work is getting in the way of her rebel time, sending big hugs and love. Well, thanks, Annalisa.
Thank you, Annalisa.
History Club World. I wonder how the different regions in Alberta are responding to the mask bylaw going away. In Medicine Hat, most people are mostly unmasked, with most businesses only recommending it. In Lethbridge, they're the same. I'm wondering for Calgary, Edmonton, and the rest. For my monorail comment, yes, monorail. Okay, monorail, I don't know. It's expensive. And that's why Simpsons made fun of it. But I think most people are slowly returning to normal, but I think there's always going to be that 20% of the population who feel like they are saving the world by wearing that piece of plastic or fabric or paper over their face. Like they just feel like this is their valor for the day.
It's like what our boss Ezra says, Sheila. It is a political statement. It's saying, I believe in big government. I believe in big lockdowns. And if you are in my social circle and you don't wear this, then you are out of my social circle. That's what it's become.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, these are people who don't do anything for anybody else all day long, by and large. I think they probably don't give to charities. They don't do volunteer work. They probably are. And I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but they're probably not that like the people you want to visit all the time, because I feel like they're probably pretty uptight about a lot of stuff. But this is like their one thing where they feel like, look at me, I'm literally saving the world. I'm saving lives. I'm just like a firefighter.
And the cherry on this Sunday, Sheila, is the fact that they tend to be young and healthy. In other words, the least likely category to get infected and die of this virus in the first place. Unbelievable. Yep.
Bo, that's Fraser McBurney, Fight the Fines recidivist from Hamilton. He gives us $10. Thank you, Fraser. And he says he had an H1 speed train between Montreal and Toronto. I know, because it had free booze when it broke down. Oh, I didn't know that.
Maybe it was on the way to Ottawa for Justin Trudeau for an India trip.
Oh, God. Friends, stay tuned. I'm going through 1,700 pages of documents related to Justin Trudeau's India trip. Now, 3 years later, 3.5 years later, I guess, because it was like February 2018, I guess, when he like pranced his way through India. And there's some crazy things coming out of that. And you got to stay tuned, because we're working on something quite special for the Liberals, because some of the things that they did there, let's just say they were improper.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to try to do something about it, but keep your eyeballs glued to rebelnews.com. Make sure you subscribe to all of our channels. Make sure you're signed up for our emails, because when we break it, it's going to be big. And I think we're going to get some help. I'm going to reach out to a few people and see if they might help us push things in the right direction.
Believe me, folks, Sheila is not overhyping this.
I know. And I think I probably have about 5 videos in the can so far, as I've gone through 1,700 pages, and I'm not even close to getting through them all. I've already got, I think I have 3 done, but that you haven't seen yet. But I'm going to have several more. It's just like, how can I just be like, wow, here's 1,700 pages worth of information, poor viewer. I've got to break it down by theme and by story. And I think we're all cut up.
Oh, okay. And we're almost 20 minutes over, Sheila.
Sorry, Justin.
Yeah, and Justin really wants his lunch, I can tell. He did a great job as usual, Sheila, as did you. And folks, Sheila and I will be back on Thursday. Tomorrow, the big boss man, Ezra, will be here. In the meantime, stay sane.